Well, good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
You've decided to run as a write-in candidate for the school board of East Sac County.
Yes.
Tell me about that decision. Why are you getting into the game?
I've thought about it for several years and just didn't feel the time was right, I guess.
In previous elections?
Yes. Yep, just having babies, having my family, and it just wasn't the right time. Now that my kids are all in school and that type of thing, I've been approached by several people asking if I would be interested in running. Gave it some thought and decided, yeah.
Okay. Now you're from Sac City.
Yes.
Your opponents are both from either Wall Lake or right on the line between Sac City and Lakeview.
Correct.
Do you think that gives you a different perspective than them?
In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. Since we're one school, we're consolidated, it shouldn't have any bearing on anything. In some people's eyes, yes, it does.
Stephanie's cat has joined us.
Yes, my nosy cat.
So if you hear any meowing, that's what's going on. Why is it you want to be a school board director this year?
I just feel that with this consolidation, there's some things that, really need to be looked at. Just some concerns that community members have shared that I don't think their voice is being heard.
What are those things or concerns?
Just questions with, I know I've been approached with a lot with the dress policy. In the middle school and high school with teachers and students. Some feel it is absolutely horrible. That's one issue.
Well, wait a minute. What is it about the dress policy that's horrible? Or that some feel
it's not being followed. Some teachers are dressing in ways that's not very appropriate.
Are you saying they're dressing provocatively?
Some of them have been known to at times.
I'm just trying to ascertain whether you're talking about being provocative or shabby or
just not professionally dressed the way a teacher should be dressed.
What else are you concerned about?
Technology. In order to compete, if you want to say, with area schools, our technology is not where the other, some of the other schools are. When I student taught way back when in Shaler-Crestland, they were leaps and bounds ahead of us on technology, and that was in 2001. We're just now getting some of the things that they've had for years.
So you've recently reviewed the level of technology at ESC?
Well, I know that at that point they were starting to have laptops. We just got those. We've had them for a few years. They had several in 2001. And I know schools in Des Moines, which, yes, that's quite a ways away, they have one-to-one laptops for every kid in the entire school. That's a huge school, but that's something we're going to have to look towards. That's the new thing.
This recent move to allow people to use their smartphones in class for those that don't have computers, do you think that's a suitable replacement for a laptop?
No. I think smartphones, I don't think they should be in any way used for test taking, for sure. Because obviously you can do other things on those, such as text and everything else, just like a computer.
So in your opinion, the computers go away at test time? Correct. Okay.
Correct. Unless research has to be done and unless it's going to be monitored 100%.
Okay. What else would you like to? What else are the issues and concerns of the citizens that are asking you to run?
There's been some concerns with the middle school, such as like the Friday night school. I think that's a wonderful thing. If the students have a certain percentage or below, they have to attend Friday night school to get that tutoring, that one-on-one help.
And now, for those that don't know, you're talking about an overall grade, an overall GPA?
Correct. No.
Per class.
Like, say, in math or reading and that type of thing. wonderful program. I think we should extend it to, why do we have to wait until they're flunking before we help these kids?
What would be the criteria by which you would base the need for Friday night school?
Well, for one, the minimum would be what's in place now, which would be, I want to say it's like 65% below. I know you can have a D and still have to go. But I don't think we should wait till 65%. Obviously, if the kids are lower, they're not getting it. They need extra support, that type of thing.
It sounds like what you're describing to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would like to examine a trend of flunking and then catch them before they actually start flunking.
Correct.
Okay. And that would be up to the teachers to recommend that?
I think so. The teachers are with them every single day. Mr. Olhausen can, I guess, enforce it as far as, yes, you need to be there. But he doesn't see every kid every day in every class. And there's no way he could look at everybody's grades every single day to determine whether they need that extra help. That would be the teachers.
Are there any other concerns that you representing the people are bringing to the election?
One concern I had brought up would be those students riding from like the Wall Lake View Auburn areas to the middle school, having breakfast and having tardy slips for, like, say if they were coming up to the middle school, as far as if their bus doesn't get here till late, then they only have about 5-10 minutes to eat. They have to run to class and they're tardy. They have to get a slip from the office. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Those students should have the time to eat, whether they choose to or not. That type of thing. There's just some things that they seem to be working a little bit. They just need to work a little better.
In that specific case, what would you propose? To me, it looks like earlier buses or leniency on the tardy. Which way would you lean? Or do you have some other idea?
Either way. I just don't think that these kids should be allowed to eat, basically. They pay for their meals. They should be allowed to eat. That type of thing.
You seem to have an entire list of concerns. Is there anything else going on?
No, this is just my write-up for the paper. I'd love to see
I was speaking figuratively.
Oh. I would love to see a tutoring program, but that kind of goes along with what the middle school is doing.
Would that be something that's self-funded by students and their parents, or would that be something that would be funded from the general fund?
That would have to be something that I think a committee or something would have to sit down and look what the cost would be. Maybe get some parent input on, what the parents would like to see, what the teachers would like to see, what the school can do, possibly with some of the financing, that type of thing, just to see where it would work out and how it could be funded. I hate to see kids get so low. It's hard to catch kids up when they're so low. If we can catch them up when they're, that middle range, it's a lot easier to boost them up.
Okay. Let's jump track a little bit here. Let's talk about why you're running as a write-in instead of getting a affidavit of canvassing and getting nomination papers. Well, why did you decide to go the write-in route?
Basically, I hadn't fully 100% decided yes, I wanted to run, or no, I didn't.
So it's something.
And there's a reason I announced it. I didn't want to be sneaky by any means, and have all these people write my name in and nobody knew. No, that's not what I was going for. That's why I called the newspaper and asked to be in, if I could possibly be in a write-up next to the other ones. That's why I'm doing an interview with you the same as the other ones. I don't want to be the one sneaky behind closed doors, basically.
Fair enough. So let's talk about some recent history at the Sac School Board a little bit. In April, there was a very contentious vote that took place regarding a policy change. disallow administrators from coaching.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
I understand both sides of the vote. I understand the people say there's just no time to be an administrator and a coach and do both jobs well. On the other hand, I understand the other that says there is. It's kind of hard to explain. Obviously, we can use Mike Fisher as an example, as he was one that was cut because of the new policy. He's been doing both for several years now. And, he teaches more, on the basketball court than most people would. So that type of thing, I think he was doing perfectly fine in his job. Test scores were up, that type of thing. My only question lied is at the school board meeting when direct questions were asked of the school board members, such as, do you have test scores that are showing a decline, showing that maybe the elementary principal is not doing his job fully, is not making sure test scores are where they should be, and that type of thing. That question was never answered.
If you were on the school board at that time, and I know it's impossible to say what you would have done unless you were actually there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if you can go there, if you were on the school board at that time, how would you have answered that person that asked the question that you just posed? That you said wasn't answered.
As far as, the research and the test scores and that type of thing?
Yes.
Oh, I would definitely research it. I would.
But how would you have answered them that night? Because if I recall, what happened was they said, we don't know, and then they had the vote to do the policy.
Mm-hmm. And that was it.
Right.
No questions were answered.
Isn't that essentially what you would have done? I don't know.
No.
And then participated in the vote?
No.
I mean, if he called for a vote...
then I would have had to have voted. Correct.
And how would you have voted at that point?
One, I probably would have looked at all three of the administrators, asked how the test scores were, asked if they're declining or they're increasing. I do believe the elementary schools were given academic excellence for their test scores. That to me shows the administrator was doing his job. I mean, in supervising those educators who were working with the students. I mean, to me, they were doing their job.
Okay.
And that shows that there wasn't a problem as far as test scores go. If that's the reason they decided that the administrator didn't have enough time to do both.
Okay. I think that answers the question for the people that are wondering. I'm going to drag you down now into the pit just for a second. What do you think about the bullying?
I think the bullying is completely out of hand.
You think it's out of hand? Okay.
Yes. I do think in some aspects it's gotten better. They've had programs in to address some of it, but I think there's a lot that goes on behind closed doors.
What do you think you could do as a school board member behind those closed doors to help mitigate what you say is an out-of-hand problem?
Well, for instance, second day of school, I was driving from the elementary to the middle school where I'm picking up my kids, and I watched two girls beat up a boy in the parking lot on the side of the school. I stopped my vehicle, stopped the fight, sent the boy home, and sent the girls home the other way. Could that have been avoided? Well, they could have probably went off school property and done whatever they wanted to do. But had there been somebody at those doors, at least it wouldn't have happened on school property. Kids are pretty smart. They know where they can and cannot do things.
So your concern is maybe not to get a whole community solution going, but to at least make the school a safe place?
No, I think the community needs to be involved as well.
How would you help the community to be involved in a solution? And this can be generic, in a solution to anything that you see as a problem. I
don't know that some of the community members realize that it's going on.
So you think it's a lack of being properly informed?
Some of it could be.
How would you bring more awareness to it as a school board director?
I mean, you could put things, you could put write-ups in the paper. You could, just plain talk to people about it. I know I watched the police officers sit, kind of by the elementary school, kind of between the middle and elementary school. They're only one person. They can only do so much. It's other people that need to be aware of the situations.
Do you think any of your experience on something like the PTO has given you insight into the schools that the other candidates might not have?
I think so. I've been involved, with the PTO since my daughter was in kindergarten, and she's now in 5th grade.
Now, keep in mind, we're talking about one guy who is an incumbent on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
And you're still...
Yep. I mean, he's got it from the school board perspective. I have it from a parent-teacher organization perspective. I speak with teachers, ask them their wishes, things that they want to see different. Whereas he talks to, and he may talk to teachers and, things like that too. Whereas he's going to see it from, somewhat of a school board opinion, what they want to see. It's just different points of view, I guess.
Do you agree with the current philosophy of the school board and the direction that they're taking our children's education?
It's kind of a tough question. I think some of the things that the school board does are in the best interest of the kids, and some are not.
Now, when you say some are not, what do you mean by that?
Some of the financial decisions I don't think are in the best interest of the kids.
Do you have any examples?
Having a gentleman's agreement on some rock that was purchased that wasn't approved by the board. Hiring out someone to do technology support when we have a technology director at our school. That person can't do what is needed at the school. So then we have that person hired plus a technology company to do the same thing. I think it's helpful, like as far as technology goes, that we hired the company, to attempt to fix the computer problems, but then we need someone on staff to do that same thing. That to me doesn't make sense. That to me is not in the best interest of the kids, because we're spending essentially 2 times the money.
Okay. That's something we should probably get into as a candidate, the financing at the school. There's several aspects of financing that are coming right up at the election that you hope to win. Mm-hmm. There's the instructional support levy. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Are you going to vote for or against the ISL?
I haven't decided yet.
You haven't decided yet?
I'm doing research on it, basically. There's just some things I jotted down myself, from doing some research, talking to some people that are both for it and against it. Talking to both sides, kind of getting, everybody's point of view. There was a conversation regarding the instructional support levy. The superintendent spoke and stated himself that they're asking for a 10-cent levy for 10 years, even though they do not need it and probably wouldn't vote as a board. He stated to use more than 3 cents. That isn't setting well with some people, obviously. And some people are fine with it. That and the fact that we haven't had an instructional support levy here in Sac City before, I think some people are cautious about voting for it. I don't think a lot of people know what it is. I think they see the signs and don't really understand it. I don't think there's a lot of facts out there for a person that's not involved so much in the school.
How do you feel about that? You think?
Well, there's some concerns regarding using both property tax and income tax surcharge. The surcharge sounds really good, but some of our more well-to-do citizens never pay any income taxes, so they wouldn't pay their fair share. That's kind of what I'm not understanding, how some of that would work. I do know someone that asked who Dr. Feeney asked point blank, would they support the levy, yes or no? The person stated that they'd make their decision after they saw, some year to, end of the year, last year, year-to-date financial reports. They never got those.
And when you say they never got those, this is somebody that was in direct conversation, or in direct
conversation with Dr. Feeney.
Not during an open meeting. This is a communication they had.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could have been downtown in front of a variety store.
And you're saying he didn't return that information to them so that they could.
So they could make a
informed choice.
Informed decision. And like I said, it could have just been somebody walking down the street. Hey, did you have that information? That type of thing.
Based on the information that you've gotten so far, and keep in mind you're running to be a director, would you be able to explain what the ISL tax is to someone who asks you?
Again, I'm still doing the research on it. It's money that the school will have to use for certain things. There's limitations on it. It can't be used for this program. It can't be used for this program. There's some pretty strict guidelines on what it can and cannot be used for. And I'm sure the board has discussed what they would use it for. But it's hard to explain to someone who doesn't have any idea about finances whatsoever. I'm not a huge financial person. As far as I don't do taxes. That type of thing. It's hard to explain to people.
Do you have trust for the administrative office that they know what's going on and will administer it properly?
I would hope so.
Okay. Do you think your decision would be easier if the ISL were based purely on a property tax? Like other levies, it's just a straight percentage of, and we're going to take $2 for every 1,000 evaluation.
Exactly.
Would that be something you could get behind? Or vote against? Without having to, 12 days out from the election, still be trying to figure it out?
Does that come from everybody?
Everyone owns property.
So that would come from farmers. That would come from some of the more well-to-do people. That would come from all those?
It'd be property tax as opposed to tax on your tax, essentially.
That to me makes more sense than doing it off of income. If that makes sense.
Sure. So then, if the vote came up, let's just play out a scenario here. And again, I stress to anyone listening that she is not on the board right now. She's not actually making this vote, and that it could change between now and then. But if the ISL failed at September 13th, and the board said, okay, we'll do a board-imposed levy, same formula. It have to be less actually, but we'll go ahead and do a board-imposed levy that will still be property a mix of property tax and income surtax. Does that sound like something you would be for?
I'm not so much for the income, just because I don't think that's fair.
And in what way is that not fair?
You have farmers who pay a certain amount for their land, and that type of when you have self-employed people, they can use their money other ways. They can write off certain things. They can do some of that stuff that other people can't. So that in turn doesn't make them pay the income tax.
What I think you're saying is that owning property is the great leveler. Property is going to be worth what the property is worth, and there's no way to fudge those numbers
There's
around.
no way to say, I think, there's no changing it. They're assessed, they're Yeah.
Okay.
It's there.
So that's what you think about that.
Mm-hmm.
As the population of the school goes down, and it's hard to get. As a reporter, it's hard for me to get a straight answer about what that level is, because there's all these different factors that go into it. It seems to me like it's about 20 students a year that we're losing. At that rate, every 5 years, it's 100 students. Right now it's like 950 students, which means in 5 years it would be 850 students. Pretty soon, the schools are going to get to the level, and I imagine it has to plateau out somewhere. But at some point, we would think, the way that we're in decline, that the schools are going to get to a level where we're at where each of the schools were before the merger. Too small to have enough spending authority to operate the school. And
have to combine with another consolidated school.
Right. Now, in the meantime, all the other schools have consolidated away from us. With Lake City, going to Ida Grove, going north. What do you see happening at that point? First of all, because I don't want to influence you, do you think that's a valid scenario? Do you think 15, 20 years from now we might be facing?
I think in time we'll basically have countywide schools where there's one school for a huge area.
Okay, that if you accept that scenario, then what would you do now as a school board director in order to prepare for that kind of situation?
Start looking at the way we spend some of our money. Again, we can look, yes, we need to boost technology, but do we need to have two people doing the same thing? Let's look at some of these ways we're spending money. Are we spending it the best way? Do we need to sit down and look at the buildings? Do we need, an elementary in Wall Lake and an elementary in Sac? Do we need to have a separate middle school than a high school? The 60s and 70s, we were graduating 90 to 100 people in a class in Sac City alone. We know our school can hold that. And that was a middle school up. That was probably 6 through 12. Do we need to have a middle school and a high school as opposed to just a 6 through 12? Those are some of the things we need to sit down and look financially. Are these things, do we need to close down a school? Yes, it's not all that great that, if we close down an elementary, it wouldn't be great for the Sac kids to be bused to Wall Lake for elementary, or the Wall Lake, Lakeview, Auburn kids to be bused to Sac City if you did it the other way. But financially, if it's causing too much financial stress, maybe we need to look into that. Whichever way it goes down. Maybe we need to look at, do we need to have both a middle school and a high school? Is there a way to combine those? That type of thing.
With the high school. And I'm not going to drag you into this town versus town thing. But do you think either of the buildings are, as they sit right now, are big enough to accommodate high school and middle school?
There's about 900 kids. K-12?
About 950 K-12, yeah.
Okay. So if we even just say half of that is 6, no, it wouldn't even be half.
Half would probably be an overestimation because we've got two buildings,
Even if you said there's, 400 kids, 7-12? You could fit 400 kids in, even say our middle school here in Sac City. You could fit 400 kids in there. If they were graduating 90 to 100 students per class in the 60s and 70s, obviously it can accommodate that. Not saying that this is the school that would have to be used. Whatever's financially best for the school district.
If you were in, the makeup would be you,
Chuck Brotherton, Kim Drost, Marty Huser, and
Brett Well.
Yes, I couldn't think of his name. I could see him.
Do you have any personal relationships with any of these people already?
No.
No social relationships, nothing?
No. Marty's daughters were on the swim team. So other than coaching those kids for, a month and a half out of the summer? No.
Have you ever observed anything that they've said during a meeting that, as you were watching it, made you just frustrated and want to say something, but you weren't there, that might change if you are a director? And obviously, you know, the April vote was big and contentious for everybody. But
if you want to talk at that meeting, I was going to say, if you want to talk at that meeting, just the holding your head down while you were being addressed was very disrespectful by some of the board members.
Do you think you're getting along with these people otherwise?
I don't think I've ever even talked to Chuck Brotherton outside of that school board meeting. Never. Okay. I can't say as though I've ever talked to Kim Drost outside of that school board meeting. I've talked to Marty just because her children are on the swim team. Brett Wilhelm, I've seen him in passing here and there. But, I mean, no. I don't think I've ever had any conversations outside of, and for Chris Rodman, for that matter, I don't think I've ever talked to him either.
Well, Stephanie, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking to me. It's always an honor to have someone who's running for a board sit down with TSN and talk about what they're going to do or what they intend to do. Let's end off with a little free form. Is there anything you'd like to talk about?
Other than I just had some questions on the Lakeview building has been cited for the past at least 6 years from the fire marshal. Just wondering what repairs have been made via the fire marshal's recommendations. We need to look at what needs to be done and make those changes before we're forced to do things basically we aren't ready for. You know, if
you aren't ready for financially?
Well, that, or, you know, if things are bad enough and they come in and say, you're done after this school year, that's a huge difference, you know. Then we're forced to do things we just aren't ready for yet.
Is this something that you've heard might be possible?
When you're cited for 6 things and you don't change those things, that can't be good.
Are there 6 things that you have in mind? Are there 6 things that you're aware of?
I know, I've been told a few of them, and it's been kind of a while back, actually. But I know there's 6+ things that are on the fire marshal report that haven't been addressed for several years. Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and end with this last question. What's your philosophy? What's your educational philosophy for, and how does that affect you as a potential school board director?
Basically, I'm prepared to make ethical decisions, you know, not based on what everybody else thinks, based on what I feel is in the best needs of the students, the school district as a whole. We need to continue to have educational success for the families, for the community, for the students, for the teachers. Basically work towards the best interest of everybody. You know, consider everybody's opinion, not just those of maybe the ones that make the most money and have the loudest voice. You know, there's some people that don't have the loudest voice that have the most concerns. You know, we need to listen to everybody's concerns and let everybody feel open to express their concerns, I guess.
All right. Well, thanks for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
September 13, everyone, vote.
And write in Stephanie Mohr for East Sac County School Board.